This is Gemara Zevachim, Daf Mem Beis, and we're holding on Mem Aleph Amid Beis. We are 2 lines from the bottom, Meisvei. We'd like all the learning to be an incredible Zchos Refuah Shalema for Gabriel Simcha B'Miriam Ahuva, B'Seich Sha'ar Chali Yisrael, the inestimable Koyach HaTorah should continue. Gabriel Simcha B'Miriam Ahuva, to have a complete refuah shalema b'siyata dishmaya. 2 lines in the bottom says the Gemara, Meisvei. Meisvei, we're asking a kasha. So asking a kasha, we have to know the previous Gemara. It's a kasha on Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish brought our Mishnah as a raya, and what we're trying to figure out is that we discussed how if the first part of an Avaida was done with a machshavas pegel, and then the next part was done b'shtika, that the shtika, the silence, is translated as if there was also a machshavas pegel. Reish Lakish had a riot to that from our Mishnah. Meisvei asked the Gemara, b'medvar mamurim, says the Brisa, when was the din said? In what case can we say that a machshavas shaloi bizmanoi creates pegel? Bedamim anisanin al mizbeach achitzoin, says the Brisa, only with the dam that is placed on the mizbeach achitzoin. And we turn over to Mem Beis Amud Aleph and continues the Gemara. Aval, however, bedamim hanitanin al mizbeach hapanimi, with the blood that is placed on the inside mizbeach, kigoin, for example, says the Brisa, Arbaim v'shalei shal Yom Kippurim, the 43 times that the dam is placed on the Mizbeach HaPanimi on Yom Kippur. These are the sprinklings, these are the hazayos towards the paroiches, as Rashi points out, the achas lamala v'sheva lamata, fame, kenegdami damasari tezayin, and Rashi goes through all the math, another 32, equaling the 43. V'achadasar shapar kohen Mashiach, and the 11 of the Parkei Mashiach, and the 11 of the Parkei Mashiach. Of all these cases of the Matan Damim, Pigol, Bein Berishayna, says the Brisa, Bein Bishniya, Bein Bishlishis, says the Brisa, whether the Machshavas Pigol, the Machshava, Shaloi Bizmanoi, is during the first, during the second, or during the third. Rabbi Meir Aimer, pegel, it's indeed pegel v'chavalav kares, and it creates kares. Chachamim aimrim, ein boy kares. Ad, until when? Sheyefagel bechol amatir. So says the Chachamim, no, it's not going to be on 1, 2, or 3. It's only going to be pegel bechol hamatir. So says the Gemara now after the Brisa, Katani Miyah. So what do we see from this Brisa? 8 lines down. First word line is pegel. Pegel bein berishayna bein bishniya bein bishlishes. Now we're discussing a case of pegel during the first 3. Upalig. And Rameir argues. And Rameir says there's indeed pegel. Even though where was the machshava? Not only on the first, with a subsequent machshava of shtika that could be translated as if there's a full machshava's pegel. No. Even if it's a machshav on the second or machshav on the third. So clearly it's not like Reish Lakish explained Rameir. Reish Lakish explained Rameir that what? The machshavas pegel is only going to create pegel if it's on the first part, and then the latter part has a shtika. So we translate it as a full pegel. But we see clearly in this brisa, not that way. Says the Gemara, maybe it's about Ravin. What are we talking about? We're discussing over here that the machshavas pegel was during the shchita. Techad matir hu, which is 1 full matir. That's where the Brisa says that there's machshavas pegel while the shchita is done. Then, if the machshava is during the shchita, to either do the matan dam of the first, of the second, of the third hazayos, that's where it creates pegel. But not that the machshavas pigel is during the first, second, or third, but during a full avodah of the shechita. Says the Gemara, if this is true, my time with the Rabbanon. So why do the Rabbanon say that there's no pigel? Amar Rava, man chachamim, Rabbi Eliezer he. Titanan, we learned in the Mishnah, hakoymet v'alavayna v'akatayresu minchas koyanim. Says the Brisa, we're talking about a different karbanos outside the Beis HaMikdash. If a koymet's the three fingers, the lavayna, the ketayres, the minchas koyanim, the minchas koyin Mashiach, minchas nisachim. If any of these karbanos shehekriv me'achas mehen, that if one of them was brought a kizayis bachotz, one kizayis of these karbanos was brought bachotz outside the Beis HaMikdash, what's the halacha? Chayiv. The halacha is that one is chayiv, the carbon will not be meratzeh. Why? Because the entirety of the carbon has to be done appropriately. And therefore, if one kizayis is done bachotz, he is chayiv, says the Tanakama. Rabbi Eliezer poiter, no, ad sheyakriv es kula, until they're all done bachot. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, what do we see? An avodah done with part, if one kizayis is done bachot, is not going to be considered an avodah. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, if one has machshavas pigel during the shechita for one part of the avodah of Yom Kippur, for one of the three hazayos, then what? It will not create pigel. So the chachamim that argued on Rameir are like Rabbi Eliezer. Asks the Gemara further, 1 second, Ve'amai Rava, but didn't Rava teach us for about 13 lines to the end of the Amid? The first one line is Eskulan. Didn't Rava say that Umaydir Rabbi Eliezer b'damim? That Rabbi Eliezer is Maydir regarding the Matan Damim, that if even once it is done b'chutz, it's going to be chayiv ditinan, that dalid, as we learned in a Mishnah. Rav Eliezer, Rav Shimon Aimrim, Makom Shepasak Misham, says Rav Eliezer and says Rav Shimon, a case in which the Rashi fills in the details for us. The carbon of Yom Kippur, the dam was nishbach, and they shechted another animal to get the dam. Mimakom Shepasak Misham Hu Maschil, from the place that the prior avodah stopped. When the dam was spilled, there he continues. There he continues the rest of the avodah. You don't have to repeat the entire avodah. So what do we see? We see that according to says Rava, that Rav Eliezer is a maskim that when it comes to the dam of Yom Kippur, we view each one independently. So therefore, says the Gemara, Rav Eliezer has to hold that even if you're going to have a machshavas pigel by one of them, that's going to create a pigel. So ask the Gemara, Hadra Kushta Laduch, they were back to square one. What is Pshan and the Chachamim that argue in Rameir? We thought that it's going to hold like Rav Eliezer, but we see that's not true. We see that according to Rav Eliezer, each of the Matan Damim is viewed independently and would certainly create pigel. So says the Gemara, Elo Amar Rava Nayab Shat. Kigoin Shepigo Barishayna. You know what's going on over here. The case is the Kohen Machshavas pigel by the first dam. Vishasak Bishniya V'chazer Pigel Bishlishis. That's the case. Rameir is going to say that there's pigel, like we originally started off, because the subsequent shtika is translated as Machshavas pigel. Ma'u Ditema. So says the Gemara, what's the Chiddush? I would have thought, if we say that he second time, when he's shasak, goes back on the original machshava, pigule b'shlishis, lamali. So why did he specify during the third hazaya, during the third time he put the dam? Why did he have to specify that it's a machshavas pigel? It just should continue. That's, you would think, not kamash malan, that it's still going to be pigel. That's the case of the Brisa. Ask the Gemara further, 6 lines to the bottom, Masler Rav Ashi. Midei Shasakatani, I don't understand. The Brisa said whether it was by the first, whether it was by the second, whether it was by the third, matan damim. How are you translating that the Brisa means that there was a machshavas pegel? So Elam Ravashi argues and he comes with a new pshat. Hacha b'may askinam 4 lines to the bottom. Going shapigel berishayna ubishniya ubishlishis. What's going on over here is that there's pegel by the first 3, but not by what? But not by the 4th matan damim. So now what's going on over here? If you think that everything goes by the first kavana, then what? Why by the second? Why by the third? Did he have to say that it's pegel? We did one the first time he has a machshavas pigel and let that continue. If he went and he said it should be pigel too, it should be pigel on the third matan damim, it would seem that he's not continuing his original thought process. Lamali. So when it came to the 4th time, maybe now that he didn't say pigel, it shouldn't work. Kamash Malah, the Rameir is going to say now that he was shasak after 3 machshavas pigels on the 3 matan damim, it's going to, yes, effect pegel. Ask the Gemara as we turn over to Mem Beis, Amud Beis, one last kasha. The wordage of the Brisa does not work. Va'bein bein kandani. The Pashik kasha that I'm sure was bothering everyone. The wordage of the Brisa was machshavas pegel be'rishayna ubein bishniya ubein bishlishis, which the Tab Rashi articulates so clearly, which is mashma, either this or this, aibizu. Says the Gemara, kasha, indeed that is shver, but we leave it at that. Says the Gemara, Amar Mar. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Rabbi Meir, Meir, pick up a chavalav kares. Ask the Gemara, mechti kares, le'machayva chikuvu kol matirov. I don't understand. There's never a kares until what? Until all dalit avodos, all the matirov, all that which makes the carbon able to be consumed, that creates the ritzoy, the shchita, the kabbalah, the zrika, the halacha, and the zrika is all done. Damar mar, kartzai is kosher, kartzai is basal. Mar tzai is kosher. What's the din? Ad shekrivu kol matirov, avatzar is basal, shekrivu kol matirov. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. So how can there be pigel over here? Now in this case, by the Avaida of Yom Kippur, he had machshavas pigel inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. By the first time he put in the blood, psula. Now the carbon is possible. Command dami, adi dami, excuse me. Then it's as if he did not do that first part of the Avaida at all. Ki adar. So now when he goes back and meidi behechal, now he does the second sprinkling in the hechal. Maya ba'almu, it's not called dam, it's not the karba michlal. Maya ba'almu dekadi. So says the Gemara, so how could Rameir say that it's going to become pigel? He didn't ever finish the karba michlal. Amar Rabba, 10 lines down, the first one line is Rabba membeis membeis. Mishkach asla, you know how? Parim, ubedalid seirim. By the dam of the 4 parim or the 4 seirim, that is one case that could happen because each carbon is its own entity. As we look at Rashi towards the end of the narrow line says, Paraba, parim, pigol, bein, habadim, b'chol matanoisav, v'nishvach adam, the blood spilled, and then he did it v'shachad achar. Achar v'hizal breiches ve'echad al kranai. So each time, if we see the blood spilled and you start it again, so each one will be its own entity, and then we'll have a case that you could have a machshavas pegel and it's considered like the entire avoda was done. Teretz number 1. Rava Amar afilu tema b'par echad v'sir echad. Even one time without any blood spilling, without any crazy story, lepigulai meratzeh, that it does work for the pegel. What does that mean? Let's let Rashi explain in the wide lines. On 4th line says Rashi, Kiechi, just like De'im Chishe B'Shchita, Karev Le'Lizrika Dama Apostle. Says Rashi, just like what happens if you're chishev by the shchita, you have a machshavas pigel at the beginning, and then you go and do the zrika. Do we say that the zrika is like Maya Ba'alma? You didn't do anything? Of course not. We say that the zrika is a continuation of the carbon. So too, klape the pigel, it's going to be the same thing, and that's how you can have a creation of pigel. Continues the Gemara. Let's go back a little bit deeper into the Brisa. Smack in the middle of the Amud. The first one line is V'sir Echad Arba'im V'Shalosh. We said this 43 times. The dam is placed during the Avodah Yom Kippur and Vatani Arba V'Sheva. We learned this 47. Hakaman Da'amar Ma'arvin Likranis. It's a machlekes in Yuma. This is according to the Mandarma that says we mix the blood that is placed on the Kranis, the horns of the Mizbeach. Hakaman Da'amar Ein Ma'arvin Likranis. That's again 43 and 47. I Vatani Arba Mushmaina. The Bryce says 48. Hakamanda Amar Shirayim Akvin. Hakamanda Amar ain't Shirayim Akvin. So to end up being either 43, 47, or 48, depending on how we view the different ways the dam is placed. Now, one last kasha on Reish Lakish. Meisvei says the Gemara, the 2 dots, 14 lines from the bottom. Ba'medvar Ma'amurim B'Kemitza. When is the din true that the carbon mincha becomes pigel? That you have the machshava by the kaimet. Says the Gemara, Bedvar mu b'kmitza b'matan kli u'behilach. The kmitza by placing it in a kli, and by the hilach, the carrying it to the mizbeach. Avol baloi lahaktara. But when the kain comes to the burning of the kaimetz and the lavaina, nasen es ha-kaimetz b'machshava ves ha-lavaina b'shtika. Then, if you did one part, the kaimetz with the machshava, not the lavaina, what's the din then? By the placement, by the haktara on the mizbeach. Rabbi Meir Aimer Pegel v'chavel of kares, and the chachamim Aimerim ein boy kares until achi yafagel b'chol hamatir. So what do we see from here? Katani miya es ha-kaimetz b'shtika v'salavayna b'machshava. Upalig, not like Reish Lakish explained. Reish Lakish said it's only if first there's a machshavas pigel, and then there's a shtika. But you see in the Brisa Fakert, you see it's first shtika, he's first quiet, and then machshavas pigel, and it's still called pigel. Answers the Gemara, Ima kvar nasan es alvaynu b'machshava. No, we can teach that it means he already placed it b'machshava, and then there was a shtika. Ada dahainu reisha. Ask the Gemara, first of all, it doesn't work. That's the first case, because the first case was you did the pigel and then the shtika. The second case was shtika, then the pigel. So how can you teach that way? Says the Gemara, indeed, this is shver, kasha. We leave over the kasha. We'll pick it up from the Mishnah the next year, V'siyata Dishmai.